Please welcome Microsoft Corporate Vice President, Enterprise Client and Mobility, Brad Anderson.
All right, good morning, everybody. You know, this is my absolute most favorite week of the year. As engineers, you know, what we love is we love to create, we love to build, but then we love to see your reaction. We get a chance to interact with you in these concentrated ways like this. So what we're going to do over the next few minutes is we're going to take some of the concepts that were talked about in the keynote, specifically on security and protection, and we're going to dive down much, much deeper into them. And we're going to show you some of the things that we've been building holistically across Microsoft. And I hope one of the things that you walk away with is this fundamental understanding of just how different the company is than it was a couple of years ago. The level of integration, the level of end-to-end thinking that we're doing, I'll tell you, is just incredible. And I hope that comes out, and I hope you get a chance to see that. Now, if you've been living in a world where you believe that your data is safe, you know, I think your world's been shattered. Let's take a look at what's just happened in just the last 4 weeks. Just the last 4 weeks. Okay, so first of all, 4 weeks ago, we saw Lookout, one of our critical partners, identified these vulnerabilities in iOS. You know, to think that just getting a text, touching on that text, your device was jailbroken and owned, really, I think, just reinforced how important it is for us to think about security. You know, we've read about the fact that the US athletes have had their medical records stolen. This was an enterprise attack. Things like, you know, we now have seen what's happened with Colin Powell and all of his emails. And then just last week, we learned about Yahoo, which is now being categorized as the largest breach in history. And look at this in the bottom right here, CNN. The Yahoo attack is a reminder that nothing is safe. Now, we think we've done things that help there, but I think it's just such a reminder about how important this is. Now, security is by far the number one focus and the number one priority in every organization that we talk to. The attacks are more relentless, they're more sophisticated, they're more targeted, they're more damaging. And all of us are being asked to protect the company assets in an ever-expanding perimeter. Data is now outside the perimeters we've built for the last couple of decades. It's in the cloud. Data's on devices. And so what is happening is the expectations on all of us continues to accelerate, continue to move up. We're being asked to now manage and protect and secure all the company assets when there effectively is no perimeter. For decades, what we have done is we've built castles, we've built fences around all of our data, and then we use that as our primary defense. Well, that world has changed. Now, I love to read, and I love to learn from the past. Let me tell you a little bit about some history here, and then we're going to compare that to what we're going through right now in our lives. You're looking at Bamberg Castle. This castle sits in a place in northern England. It's actually had fortifications on it for more than 2,000 years. In the 13th and 14th century, this was the most safe, most secure place in the world. Impenetrable. And then something changed. During the War of Roses, the Earl of Warwick laid siege to this for 9 months. After 9 months of basically hitting their head against the wall, they changed things a little bit. They started to build these 3 massive cannons. You know, and the people in the castle were like having this Monty Python moment, you know, like, yeah, bring it, you know. No castle had ever fallen to cannons at that point. Now, cannons weren't new. What was new is the ability for them to shoot from a distance and their accuracy. Then literally starting in June of 1464, these 3 cannons started firing in unison and just systematically picked apart the castle, and it fell. First castle to fall to cannons. Now, the first question everybody asked was, how do we build a better castle? But the reality was the castle was a stationary device, and old technology, old defenses were no match for new attacks. So we had to rethink it. At the same time, the population was growing to the point where we couldn't contain everybody within the castle. And so it has so many analogies to what we have today. The data is no longer can be held inside the castle. It's outside the castle. In fact, 90% of the world's organizations are using SaaS apps. The data is out. Data is on devices. The attacks are more sophisticated. The attacks are new. So we fundamentally have to rethink about how we're going to secure and protect the data in this mobile-first, cloud-first world. Now, these attacks, they're continuous, they're relentless, they're always there. And man, I'll tell you, these guys are smart. They're continually learning. And the reality is nobody has the expertise and the time and the resources to be able to do this on their own. Now, over the past couple of years, we've been building something incredible at Microsoft. And it's called the Intelligent Security Graph. Now, what I want you to envision here is think of everything that Microsoft does, all the services that we build and operate, all sending its telemetry, all of its signal back to one place. So, for example, we manage more than 200 cloud services for consumers and enterprise. Every bit of that signal and exhaust that comes back, man, it goes into the security graph. We patch over 1 billion PCs around the world every single month, and every time we update those PCs, it sends information. It goes into the graph. We do things like, we literally do 300 billion authentications between Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Account every month. It's amazing what we see and learn. All that goes in the graph. You get the picture, right? We do things like we actually analyze over 200 billion emails every month. Everything we learn, the attacks, the malware, the malicious URLs, all goes in the graph. And then we take all what we learned from Bing, 18 billion web pages that we scan, all in the graph. Now just imagine all this data coming together in one place. And think of what we learn. So we get this feedback, malware, spam, authentications, attacks. We get to see what's happening in Xbox Live and how that's being attacked, and we learn how to apply that to the enterprise to help protect the enterprise. Azure's under constant attack. Organized crime's looking for free capacity to then spam the world. All that's learning, and all that goes into this intelligent security graph. So we bring it all together. And this is now put to work for you 24/7, every second of every minute of every day. Now ask yourself the question, who else has this kind of data? Who else has this kind of signal that can be put to work for you every second of every day? I think Microsoft is very, very unique here. Now, one of the things that we've learned as we built this, security is critical. We spend more than $1 billion in security every year. Now, and what we've learned is that building a solution that is secure, it has to be engineered from the ground up. And in fact, building a solution that is loved by users and IT has to be engineered. Just like the lines and the aesthetics of a beautiful car, I love a fast car, but it has security built into it. So you might ask yourself the question, how do you build a security product that end users love? Well, they love it if they don't know it's there. Once a user knows that there's a security solution in place, we've already failed, because the way that you secure it should be behind the scenes, and it should be guiding the user in a way that is intuitive and is simple and is pleasing. For far too long as an industry, we have built great solutions that are secure, that our users hate. All right, so I'd ask you these questions, and these are questions I get from customers all the time. Can you answer yes to these questions? 1, do you know who's accessing your data? 2, can you build policies that in real time can control access to your data? 3, can you protect your data on devices in the cloud and when it's mobile and in transit? 4, can you quickly identify breaches and stop them? And finally, are you delivering a solution that your users love? Now, over the next hour, I hope to show you what we can help you do to answer all 5 of these questions. Now, we're going to do it in the context of this process that we talk about across Microsoft. And you're going to see this throughout the conference. How do we help you protect, detect, and then respond? Protect's all about being able to define policies that's a yay or a nay. We block or we allow based upon certain risks. Detect is the ability for us to be able to identify through machine learning, through the data analytics, an attack. And then how do we then give you enough information for you to be able to respond? And so we've got investments in all 3 of these that work across all of Microsoft that we're going to give you a view. And actually, of the next hour and 6 minutes and 8 seconds that we have left here, 80% of it's going to be demos. And so I hope the demo gods are with me and I don't mess up. Okay? All right, so let's dig into first into protect. Protect is all about being able to define the rules which you as IT pros are going to require before access is granted. Okay, this is like the gate. The gate's either open or it's shut. But you want to have the ability to be able to define a policy and then have that policy applied in real time on your behalf. Okay? Now remember, we're talking about having to protect in a world where the perimeters are no longer effective. Having a perimeter-based security is no longer effective. So as you think about it for a minute, the one thing that is common across all your apps, all your data, is the user's identity. Identity is the new control plane. Identity is the new perimeter. It is the only thing that is common as your users move from one device to another. Identity is the piece that opens the door for them. It also is the place that the bulk of the attacks come in. We know that more than 75% of all the breaches that we've all read about eventually trace back to some kind of compromised user credentials. There's some amazing research we've just completed. Okay? Let me give you a couple of numbers that may or may not shock you. When your users get a phishing email, 30% of them will open up the email. 12% of them will open the attachments, and they'll do it within 4 minutes. What that means is guaranteed every phishing attack that gets launched against your organization, somebody falls for it, then the attackers have got valid usernames and valid passwords, and they're in. How do you find them? How do you block them? We know it takes more than 200 days to find the block, 80 days to actually then stop it, and all the while your PR department is trying to stop the damage to your brand and to your customer trust. So what I want to show you here is some of the things that we can now help you do that, based upon the intelligent security graph and the machine learning and data analytics that we have, actually help you identify risk, actually have the system identify risk on your behalf and take action, okay? So let's dig in now. Let's take a look at some of the things that we can do here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is put my glasses on so I can see. Okay, let's show you one of the new capabilities that we're just bringing out. This is in private preview right now. It'll be in public preview in the next couple of months. And what I'm going to show you here now is the ability for you to define policies where you can get as specific as saying, I'm only going to allow certain apps to access services. Okay? One of the most common requests that I'm hearing right now as I meet with organizations is people saying, I want to restrict my corporate email to just Outlook. I want to have it completely separated from everything else on the device, but I want to restrict it to Outlook. I don't want anybody else, any other application that makes requests for it to succeed. So let's show you what we can do here. So I'm going to start here with the Inbox email app. Now, when I authenticate here, I'm just setting up my account. What's happening right now is the app is actually making a request back to Exchange Online in Office 365. Office 365 is now literally interacting with the EMS services in the back end. And it's making this request, and it's saying, hey, Brad is trying to get access. Brad's trying to get access, and he's using the Inbox email app. Here's the characteristics of the device. Here's the characteristics of the application. And on the back end right now, we're having a conversation about should we allow that or should we not. It's going to take a second or two here, but what you're going to see happen is I get an email that pops in, and it says, hey, you can get access, but it requires Outlook. And right here, you click on Get Started Now. It would actually walk the user to getting Outlook. Now, of course, we support the Inbox email app if that's what you want to use, but we're showing you the power of now being able to find conditional access policies where you can actually get as granular as saying, I'm only going to allow apps X and Y to access the service. So let's go into Outlook, okay? And you have different ways to protect the app itself. In this case, it's going to ask me for my fingerprint. Okay, so I have a level of security on the app itself, and I can guarantee that a user cannot get access unless they present their thumbprint, so I get that multi-factor authentication here. And you can see this is, in fact, today's email. And so, you can take, I'm getting email real flow. And like the question I have tonight is, what's going to be the biggest sporting event? Monday Night Football or the presidential debate? Okay. Now let me talk to you just a minute about Outlook. Outlook, if you think about it, the number one thing that all of you want to do is you start thinking about your users on mobile devices. You want to give them secure email. Outlook, more than 42 million users using it on iOS and on Android, 4.5 stars in the stores. This is the most loved, most preferred email app on iOS and on Android. And we're also now beginning to build all the capabilities that you've used for years on Windows into it. So if I go take a look here, notice Skype for Business is now integrated into it. And right from here, I can actually start the Skype meeting, and off it goes. And so the business use of Outlook is phenomenal because I now have that consistent experience across Windows, iOS, and Android with all the Office goodness built into it. And it's all now based on Azure and Office 365. For those of you who have been following us since we acquired Acompli, Acompli had a cache on Amazon. In July, we finished the work to now all that is moved into Azure, all that's moved into Office 365. In fact, your cache is just your Office 365 inbox. Outlook is ready for you in the enterprise. Interesting statistic here, on all the devices that we have MAM enabled worldwide with Intune, Outlook is on more than 80% of them. Okay, so this is absolutely the best way to do your email. Now, this conditional access policy that I've built says I'm going to restrict access to Outlook, but I'm also going to allow the EMS managed browser. For those of you who are deep in Office 365, you know you get these incredible rich web apps now. And so what I can do is I can go to the browser here. This is the managed browser that comes with a part of Intune and EMS. Right here, I'm given access to all my email. There's that email from Maura. Had I gone and clicked in other places, email would be blocked because I've restricted email now to Outlook and to the managed browser. Okay, make sense? Okay, so the ability now to be able to define conditional access based upon apps that you want to be able to have access services. Okay, now let's transition over here and let's take a look at Windows. Now, what I want to show you here is a new set of multi-factor authentication capabilities that we have where we can now define conditional access based upon user risk. I'm going to show you what the admin console looks like in a minute. But I've gone out and built a set of policies that basically say, if I see anything suspicious with respect to how the user is coming into access service, I want to automatically challenge the user with a multi-factor authentication. On your left-hand side, you see Edge. On your right-hand side, you see a Tor browser, okay? And what the Tor browser does is it allows the user to basically hide their IP address. So I'm going to come here first of all on this device, and I'm going to go ahead and sign in. Now, it's on Edge. It sees that everything is good, and so all the policies that have been put in place by Microsoft are good, and it actually lets me in. So right here, you know, I've authenticated to Office 365. I could go launch any of those web apps. But we also do this for a bunch of our partners. In fact, we've integrated with more than 2,700 SaaS apps to provide you things like wonderful self-service single sign-on. So right here, I go into Salesforce, and I say I want to be automatically signed in, and boom, just like that, I'm single signed on, I'm into Salesforce. And fascinating enough, because Salesforce is being managed, that authentication, guess what it did? It sent telemetry back to the intelligent security graph. Right there, you just saw data that made the graph smarter. Now let's transition over to the right-hand side and look at the Tor browser. Okay, so to give you a view here, I'm going to go take a look at the onion. You can see that my traffic is being routed through Germany, Switzerland, France, basically being routed through all of Western Europe. Now, my policy, when I come to do the exact same thing here, when I click on sign on here, it literally is going to detect that something was strange. My policy says, hey, if I see the user coming in from a device that's hiding an IP address, I want to take some precaution, and I want to challenge that user with a multi-factor authentication. So I'm going to challenge that now, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to bring up here on the side of my iPhone. So what's happening right now, and it's taking a little bit of time because it's routing again through all of Western Europe, you're going to see that I'm going to get a phone call here, and the multi-factor authentication capabilities of EMS are going to verify that I am who I say I am.
Thank you for using the Microsoft Sign-In Verification System. Please press the pound key to finish your verification. Your sign-in was successfully verified. Goodbye.
Now watch what's going to happen on the right-hand side here. Hands off. Okay, I'm signed into Salesforce. And again, it's taking time because, again, it's routing through all of Western Europe. The policy said if I see anything suspicious associated with the user, challenge that user with a multi-factor authentication because you have to verify the users who they say they are. Remember the fact about 12% of your users are going to open up a file in a phishing attack in the first 4 minutes? You have to have a primary line of defense, and multi-factor authentication has to be a core part of it. And just like that, I could come down here, I could go to Salesforce, and the same security would be applied. Okay? Now, I just want to emphasize here the importance of having to engineer that. That experience, if you challenge a user with too many multi-factor authentications, they get tired of it. You know, they get fatigued. And so we've actually done the work that we only challenge a user when we know that there's something wrong. Now, what I'm going to do here now is go show you some of the administrative console on this. So what you're looking at here is something we just put in market last week, and it's called Azure Identity Protection. This is one of the EMS components. And what it allows me to do now is assign risk based upon the data that's coming out of the graph. So first of all, I can go take a look at risk events, and you can see here the kind of risk events that we can score for you. This one here, lead credentials, this means that user's account is currently up for sale on the internet, and we get this information coming in from our digital crimes unit. Things like if a user logged in from an IP address that's anonymous, we consider that a medium risk. But you see that all this is coming out of the security graph, and all this is coming from all that telemetry and that data that we check. Now, what I really want to understand is what users does this impact? And so I can come take a look here at the users that have been flagged for risk. Now, draw your attention to a couple of things here. That's Brad. It's remediated. I kid you not, we tried this 107 times to make sure it was flawless. Okay, you never want to have a demo fail, okay? Now, if I come up here, let's look at Maya. We're concerned about Maya because Maya, first of all, you can see here, her credentials are up for sale right now. It's a compromised account. And I can also see that her identity has been being used from a device that's been hiding its IP address. Okay, now what I'm able to do here is I can now go and put a policy in place. This is conditional access based upon user risk. And so I can come in here and I can first of all identify what users I want to apply this to. I can say all, I can exclude some. I can then define the policy itself. Okay, so I'm saying I want to put a policy in place whenever Microsoft tells me there's a high risk. What I'm going to do is I'm going to block access. I'm going to be hardcore about it. But I could also say allow access but require multi-factor authentication. And then right here I can get a view of the number of users that would be impacted. So I get that pre-flight to make sure I don't turn something on and kill my help desk. This is powerful. This is incredibly powerful because you can now put risk associated by your users. Now, if I come back to the overview here, one of the things you see here that we're pointing out is, hey, you've got too many administrators, too many global administrators. This gives us a chance to show you one of the other new EMS capabilities. And this is what we call privileged identity management. And what this is all about is helping you understand who your high-value, high administrative privilege users are and what they're doing. So I can come take a look here, and I can see that there are 13 global administrators, 8 are active, 6 are eligible to be shut down. Okay, so let me click on this. And what you can see here, you can see now all of these users who have administrative privilege. I want to call this in right here. This is just-in-time administration. And again, one of the EMS capabilities. You can go out now and say, I'm going to give this individual administrative privilege for a day, for a week. They can accomplish what they need to have done, and then you remove the privilege. I'll bet you the majority of those users that are up there that have administrative privilege and are not logging in, you gave them access at one time and forgot about them. So this helps you to minimize that, okay? Now, I'm going to show you something we've never showed ever outside of a handful of a few people on the EMS teams. For the tens of thousands of you that are using Azure Active Directory Premium and Intune today, what you're looking at for the first time ever is the new integrated EMS console. Okay, yeah. Now, it gets better when you understand what it does. Okay, so let me walk you through what we've done here. I tell you, this has been one of the most powerful things I've ever worked on in my career. Remember we showed you that concept of user risk just a minute ago? Now I can also assign risk based upon the platform, apps, location, and more. So I can go in and say, listen, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to say, in this case, I'm only going to allow iOS to access this. I'm going to go out and say, I'm going to go and assign this, and I'm going to assign it to selective apps. Sorry, I actually go and put the apps if I wanted to. Over here, I can actually come in and say, listen, I'm going to go build a policy, and I want to specifically assign this to 2 specific apps. I want to apply this to Exchange, and I want to apply this to Salesforce, and so I can get very granular. But then here, I can build out those policies based upon device, what apps, location. This is where some of our partnerships, like the partnership with Lookout, will also surface, and our partners will also be surfacing risk data in here that you can build a policy on. Then what I can do is simply say I want to apply that, and right here I can grant access on this. Now look at the power of what we can allow you to do. I can come in and say, okay, I'm going to allow access to either a managed device that's compliant or a managed app, and if either one of those is in place, I will allow access. But think of the power here. You can now build conditional access policies based upon user risk, device risk, app risk, risk coming in from our partners like Lookout and others. And all this is acting for you real time. And as users come in to ask and request services, we turn it off or we turn it on, we allow or we deny based upon this risk. That's powerful. Okay? Come on, give me some love on that one. Yeah, there you go. You know, I can't wait to get away from the Silverlight console. Yeah. Whew. All right, so let me kind of show you things. So first of all, remember these questions. We just showed you how to answer 5 of them. You now know who's accessing your data. And if something is suspicious there, we'll trigger the MFA and we'll stop an attacker from coming in. You can control access to your data in real time based upon risk, and your users love it. Security's built in. You're using the real Office apps rather than some knockoff, okay? And you get all that value. Now, let me give you just a couple of examples, okay? First of all, this right here is what you saw that is new. These are all the things that are new as you're coming to the event today that you should get educated on. Azure Identity Protection, Identity Management, the new iOS and Android fully powered on the Microsoft Cloud, Defender Application Guard, the per-app conditional access, and an expanding partner ecosystem. Now, let's give you 2 examples of people using this in production. First of all, Unilever. You know, Unilever, a global company whose products are used 2 billion times a day by over 50% of the households in the world. I mean, these guys are massive. They wanted to embrace the cloud. They wanted to enable their employees to work anytime, anywhere. But they had to make sure that it was secure. So what they've been doing is they've been rolling out Office 365 and EMS, and they now have over half of their users protected with MFA. We're just beginning their migration to Intune for all their device management. And I would encourage you to go to this session to hear in their words what they're doing, okay? BRK 2210. And you'll actually have the Unilever executives and IT people here talking about their journey here. I also want to talk to you about, let me go back. I also want to talk to you about Bristow. So Bristow is an organization that transports workers to and from oil rigs, and they also do a lot of search and rescue. Work in a very highly regulated world. They wanted to control access and guarantee the users accessing their services on-prem, SAP, Workday, were their employees. So they've also incremented all of the EMS capabilities on MFA, and they actually are doing conditional access based upon things like device compliance and other things. Okay, so just wonderful access, but these people are protecting their assets. Now let's move to the second piece now. Let's move to detect. Now, there's 2 aspects of detect. Of course, one of those is you want to be able to identify anything that is suspicious and then be able to take action on it. But you also want a system that's able to detect when users are trying to do the right thing, maybe go outside of those guardrails, and you want to guide them back in. And you want them to be behind the scenes. You want it to be seamless. You know, users want to be free. They want to innovate. They don't want friction. They don't want anything that slows them down. You know, just like this graphic, you know, they want to be free. But IT wants to put some guardrails in. And you want those guardrails to be seamless. And I'll tell you again, what we have learned is to build guardrails that are seamless. It has to be engineered for IT and for end users from the start. It can't be a bolt-on. And that's why we've been working so hard to make sure that we make this as seamless as possible. There's a couple of fascinating stats here. 58% of the workers have told us that they know and they admit to accidentally having sent data to people that they shouldn't have. Now, let me give you a personal example of this. When I was running Windows Server and System Center, my counterpart at Dell was named Brad Anderson. You know how many times autofill of either my direct reports or his direct reports put the wrong Brad Anderson in and we got an email sent to each other that we shouldn't have sent? That's accidental data leakage. That's accidental data leakage. How do you protect against things like that? And so what we've been working on here is literally trying to help you understand how to do that. Now, there are 3 use cases that we focus on. One, you've got people who are good corporate citizens, and they're doing their best to do the right thing. Man, they want to do the right thing, and if you're kind of helping them understand in a seamless way how to protect the company data, man, they love that, they appreciate that. Increasingly, these users need to share data inside and outside of the company. So data has to be able to be mobile and be in transit to be fully productive. And then you have malicious users. You have users who have ill intent. You have to acknowledge that we have those. But your design principles are for the users who are doing the right things. You have to give them an environment that is delightful to them with the awareness and the ability to be able to identify these suspicious behaviors of the people with ill intent and then take action. All right, let's go show you another set of demos here, and we're going to walk you through now a bunch of the things that we have done in a very seamless way to help you understand what it is that we can do now to help you in a seamless way protect. So I'm going to go back onto my iPad here. Now, we're talking about detect, so let me walk in and show you a very typical user scenario. So here I am in Word. Now, one of the biggest challenges we had as we thought about the Office mobile applications is how do we protect the data when it's company data, but when it's personal data, stay out of it and honor the user's privacy? You know, the Office mobile apps are unique in that people use them in their personal life and their business life. And if you think about it, there's only a handful of apps that people use in both of those. So we had to figure out a way to be able to make that determination, and we do it based on identity. So you see here, I can open files from 5 different locations. I'm going to go open up this document here from OneDrive for Business. Now, OneDrive for Business required my corporate credentials to get access to. Because my corporate creds were required, as this file opens, it's automatically had data loss prevention applied to it. Had I opened a document from a personal location, like Dropbox or OneDrive, IT would have stayed out of it. So now we can put in data loss prevention policies. Like I can guide users to keep corporate data in corporate locations. If I try to save a copy of this, let's say I try to go put it into Dropbox, it's not allowed, and we're guiding the user. But users want to be free. Remember, they want to be empowered. So I'm able to do things like I can come in here, I can select all of that, and I can copy it. Now, let's go back over to Outlook for a minute. Now, in Outlook, I'm going to go and I'm going to create an email. Now, I'm in my corporate email right now. I come in here, and I want to be able to paste that information in, and it pastes just like you expect it to. But let's go do the same thing now. This time, I'm going to change into my personal email. Same app, personal email. Now when I go to paste, paste isn't allowed. We're keeping all your corporate data contained, protected, guiding the user. This is possible because we've taken all of our management, all of our security, all of our protection in EMS and built it into the Office mobile apps and the services. But we do it more than just with Microsoft apps. Let's come into SAP here. This is one of the new SAP apps. And again, it's going to ask me for my thumbprint. And so I can actually put in, I can actually have it prompt me for a PIN, for different things like that. Now, I want to go in here and take a look at my benefits. Now, this is some confidential information, so I'm going to come and have it display my information. And I'm going to show you another example of this. So I'm going to select all of this, and I'm going to copy it. Let's go back into email again. So come into email. I need to send some of this to somebody in HR, and so I'm going to go and I'm going to paste that in. But then watch this. Right here, I'm going to go try to change that to my personal email. And it's not allowed. So this concept of being intelligent, where you can copy and paste, empowering the user, when it's all amongst the corporate context, but then guiding the user how to do that when it's really amongst the, when they're trying to copy it into a personal app. Now, this is a growing ecosystem. You know, we have key partners like Citrix bringing all their apps into that, Adobe, others. You know, when you're using the Enterprise Mobility Suite from Microsoft, you actually have the largest managed app ecosystem in the industry, okay? Now, this is also, I displayed this on an iPad, but I could have showed this with the Enterprise Data Protection, which is now called Windows Information Protection on Windows. So we can do that on all 3 of the platforms. Now, let's transition now and take a look at the next thing I wanted to show you, which is, you know, I showed you some MAM, I showed you some MDM. And MDM and MAM is all about trying to build fences around your data. It's trying to build the castle around the data. But there's some data that has to be mobile. There's some data that has to be shared, and it's going to exit that perimeter. So our belief is that data should be self-protecting. Our belief is that a file should actually know who's allowed to open it. And even in the case that file gets sent to somebody that they're not supposed to have it, it doesn't matter because the file knows who has rights to it. Now, one of the age-old challenges here is if we could get users to automatically classify and label their data, it would allow us to put policy on it. So a year ago, we purchased an organization named Secure Islands. Secure Islands gave us a bunch of technology we've added into EMS in the Azure Information Protection. So let me show you some of that new capability. So here I am in Word. I'm working on a document. This is a corporate document. I want to go classify this as confidential. So I have this is a new toolbar that comes when you're using EMS and Office together. I'm going to classify that as confidential. Now watch what happens. It's going to put a footer. It puts a watermark. And if I come here and take a look at the Backstage, that document is now protected. And what the policy is here is it's confidential. Only employees of my company can access it. So even now, if this file was sent to somebody outside of the company, they could not open it. Okay? We've revolutionized how we protect data. Now let's continue on this path. The age-old problem we have is how do you get users to classify the data? Because sometimes users are going to forget. Well, what Secure Islands brought to us now inside of EMS and Azure Information Protection is the ability to auto-classify. So you can go build rules. You can go build rules for code names, for credit card numbers, and have it automatically be classified. So I'm sitting here, I'm working in a budget, and I'm going to go ahead and copy in a credit card number. And just the task of saving, watch what's going to happen here. The rules of EMS and Azure Information Protection saw that credit card number and has automatically gone out and classified this as confidential. Now, the challenge here is this is actually my personal budget. But IT is now classified as a corporate confidential document. Remember, we're about empowering users. Well, you know what? I can go out here and say, you know, this is actually a personal document. And just like that, I can make sure that my personal data is safe and secure, and my privacy is protected, while IT is also protecting the corporate data. Okay, I think that's amazing. Okay? I think it's really amazing. Now, wouldn't it be awesome for your most sensitive data to actually be able to track who's been accessing it and from where? Well, one of the new things in Azure Information Protection is the ability to do exactly that. So you're looking at this site that now allows me to actually look at my confidential documents that have been shared and track who's using them. So I get this dashboard. I can see there have been 40 successful views, and I can look at the names there. This individual, Brian's been trying to access this document. It looks like he's been pretty persistent on it. I can get a view of the timeline, so day by day, who's been successful, green, who's been blocked, orange. I can actually get a map view of it, so I can actually see where in the world these people are trying to access it. And if for some reason I feel like I want to revoke access to that, I come down here, I can revoke access. No one can open those files, that file anywhere in the world again. You are in control of your data. Your users are in control of their data. They can actually track how that's been used. All right, now, we've talked about the fact that data is moving into the cloud. How confident are you that confidential information has not been put up in the cloud in these SaaS apps and is just readily accessible to anybody in the world? So what I'm going to come show you here is one of the newest members of EMS, and this is what we call Microsoft Cloud App Security. This is our CASB solution, our Cloud App Security Broker. This came from a recent acquisition of an organization named Adallom. This is powerful. Now, what the first thing this allows me to see, I get a dashboard like this, and I can see that it has discovered my users are using 152 SaaS apps. I'll bet that if I were to ask every one of you how many SaaS apps are being used by your employees, you would underguess it by a factor of 10. So for the first time, I actually get to see what my users are using. Oh, you know what? You want to know what kind of a working environment users want? Go look here, because this will tell you what your users are actually doing. Okay, Shadow IT is actually one of the best places to learn what your users really want. But what we've done here now is I can get a list of all these apps, and we've gone and done a bunch of analysis on it. So I can come and take a look here, and I can take a look at a security score. So we've gone now and done the work. And I can come, for example, here and see what kind of security settings this app has. This particular app, if you see here, doesn't have a lot of security built into it. I can actually take a look at where it's been certified and what compliance organizations have certified or it's been certified for. Again, very light here. We have done this scoring work for more than 13,000 SaaS apps. I'll bet some of you have teams doing this very thing. Let us do it for you. Okay? Now, we've done far more than just look at the security. We actually understand how these cloud apps work. And what that allows me to do now is I can go start to investigate how my users are using these apps. So look at the power of this. I can come in, I can now investigate, and I can go in and say, I want to look at all the SaaS apps, all 152, that my users are using, and I want to look at any file that is publicly accessible, meaning it doesn't require a username and a password to get access to. If somebody has the URL, they can get access to these files. Now, I can come take a look at this. I'm going to open this one up. It shows me who the user was. It shows the date. I want to call your attention to this right here. Remember I showed you just a minute ago the ability to classify data in Azure Information Protection? This is surfacing up that this is actually classified as confidential. One of the things that really differentiates our CASB solutions from anything else in the market is we're thinking holistically. We're taking the other EMS components and building it in, and this is where you see our data protection being built into our CASB solution. Now, this is great, but what I really want to know is if any of this is causing me to be non-compliant. So I'm going to take a look at the policies that have been built by IT, And I can take a look at my PCI compliance policy here, and I can see there are 3 documents that are causing me to be non-compliant. So now I can take action. I can come in here, I can look at this, I can see, again, the user, I can see the dates on it, where it's at. But right here, I can do things like I can make the document private. If I want to get really hardcore, I can quarantine the user so they can't use the service any longer. You can see and you can manage and protect your company assets in the ever-expanding cloud apps that your users are using, either that are sanctioned or unsanctioned. Now, one last thing I want to show you here, and this is one of my favorite aspects of this solution. We're surfacing alerts in here from the Intelligent Security Graph. Let me show you some of the power of this. Right here, we've seen, you know what? We see something wrong with this user. Look at what we're able to present to you here. We can see that this user logged in from Mexico, and then 35 minutes later, or Australia, and then 35 minutes later logged in Mexico. Unless this person's figured out something the rest of us have, this is a compromised user account. We can see the user is logged in on an IP address we've never seen in the company before, and also has come in from an ISP, in this case one in Mexico, that no user from a company has ever used before in the past. We're surfacing information for you about how your users are using these services and issues you should be concerned about. This is a fascinating one. We're seeing a user is downloading massive amounts of data from one of the cloud apps. Is he or she getting ready to leave your company, go to a competitor? Is this an attacker who's gotten access and now downloading all the documents from your company? Fascinating data for you to now be able to act on. And this is what we call our Microsoft Cloud App Security, one of the components of the Enterprise Mobility Suite. Now, one last thing I want to talk to you about here before I move on to the next section is something new that is free to all of you to use in Azure, and this is what we call Azure Security Center. And what I want you to think about here is think about all the knowledge, all the intelligence that the engineers who build Azure are able to now schematize and put in practice. And all those little things that you know you should do, your firewall on, these ports shut down, all the things that if not done correctly open up the threat attack vector for you. We're constantly scanning all your infrastructure, all your apps up in Azure. We can give you recommendations. So I can come and take a look here and see that there's a bunch of things I need to be concerned about from a network perspective. I can come over here and click on the recommendation. It'll actually give me I now got my task list. I'm a to-do list guy. So here I see the task list of all the things that I have to do. One of them could be that I need to add a vulnerability assessment set of capabilities. So I can highlight one of the VMs, and right here you see the power of the ecosystem growing in Azure. A couple clicks of the mouse, and I could have Qualys added, give me vulnerability assessments. Now I've already done that. I can come in here and take a look at what Qualys has done. Now, one of the things important to point out here is all of these are resolved. If you take a look at here, all of these actions that Qualys has recommended I take have been resolved. But think about this, constantly scanning all your VMs, your network, your data in Azure, and then surfacing up to you the things that you need to be aware of. Now, we know the attackers are smart. They morph, they change. And so we also are looking for the patterns that tell us about new attacks. And so we can surface things to you like a security alert. Now, this is super interesting. I'm going to come in here, and I can see here on 9/19, there was a security incident. I can drill in and it starts to show me information. Okay? I can see that there was a SQL injection that was blocked, and then the person tried to do what's called a brute force with RDP, blocked, but then it was successful. And right here I can see now that this network is actually, this VM is now actually communicating with an external IP address, sending information outside of my company. This is free for you to use. It's just a part of your Azure subscription. Azure Security Center, highly, highly recommend that you use it. But all these ways for us to detect, guide your users, guide IT to protect the company. All right. Now, what questions do we help you answer here? Well, you can protect your data on devices, in the cloud, and in transit when it's mobile. You can also do things like quickly identify a breach and react. And again, you're delivering that work experience for users that they love. And that's all part of what we've done as we've brought together Office 365, the Enterprise Mobility Suite, and the different components. Things that you saw there that are new. Azure Information Protection, new. And inside of that is the identity protection as well. Azure Security Center, and then this expanded partner ecosystem. These are all things that are new in the last couple of weeks. Now, again, to give you a couple of examples here of some people who are using this. General Motors, more than 200,000 employees. For them, their RFPs that they send out to their supply chain and those engineering designs of the new cars, that is critical. So they want to use these abilities to have the documents become self-protecting as a way to protect all their documents. And so, they're rolling this out across General Motors, and it's a core part of how they protect their data. I've been able to work closely with them as they've been migrating to Intune. They're actually one of the largest Intune customers in the world now in terms of the number of devices they're managing. You want to hear more from GM? Go to BRK1038. That's BRK1038. They'll tell you more about what they're doing. Let's talk about Avanade for a minute, okay? The definition of a mobile workforce. 28,000 employees globally. They sent an email out to their employees that said, hey, we're going to start requiring that your personal devices are MDM managed in order to get corporate email. They saw a 30% drop in the number of devices accessing Exchange Online immediately. People get a little concerned when you take over their device. So one of the innovations that we released in the last few months is the ability now for us to sign all that data loss prevention and security in a MAM-only world without having to take over the device. So what did Avanade do? Hey, they changed their policy. We're going to go with this MAM without device enrollment. We're going to provide all that protection, but we're going to do it without taking over the user's device. One of the innovations we've done inside of EMS. Their leader, I love Joseph. This is what he said. I'm going to read it here. The best protection is protection that your users will actually use. Great protection that nobody uses is no protection. They changed their policies to deliver that working environment that users loved. And then finally, let me tell you a little bit about Star Companies. So Star Companies, 9,000 employees across 5 continents. They do travel and travel insurance as well as assistance. Their biggest issue is they were concerned that as they went to Azure and they wanted to go to Azure, their CISO said, we're committed to the cloud because it allows us to be nimble and quick. But they were concerned in a world where nimble and quick could mean vulnerabilities because things were left open. And now they talk about the following. I'm going to read the quote from him. With Azure Security Center, we benefit from the vulnerability and threat management that Microsoft gleans from millions of Azure customers. And again, this is this intelligent security graph working for you 24/7. Okay, so we've talked about protect. We've talked about detect. Now let's talk about respond. This is really hard. This is really, really hard. As you think about what respond is, first of all, you have to get the fundamental belief that every organization has been compromised. This is a fascinating quote from the head of the FBI where he said, there are 2 kinds of organizations, those who have been breached or attacked, and those who just haven't admitted it. You have to assume breach. You have to assume breach all the time. And in order to respond, there's 4 questions that you have to answer. You have to be able to answer, what did the attack do? How did it get here? Where did it spread? And ultimately, what's the risk to me, my company, and my customers? Now, if you think about that for a minute, that can't be done in isolation. Trying to understand how the attack came in, most of these attacks come in through some kind of a phishing experience, or they come in through a browser. They get on a device, and then the attackers spread. You have to look at data telemetry signal from across your entire company. It's just a sea of data. For those of you who have been involved in a breach, or maybe have spoken to someone who's been in a breach, what many companies do when it happens is they go and hire a company. The company comes in, they kind of collect all the data, and then they try to look for the needle in the haystack. It takes weeks, takes months, right? We talk about the fact that it takes 200 days on average plus in order to find a breach, more than 80 days to stop it. And again, all the while, your PR department's trying to stop the disaster publicly of customer trust that is lost. This is where this concept of the intelligent security graph is just so critical for you. Remember, all that signal is coming into Microsoft, and it's being put to work for you 24/7, every second of every minute of every day. And we want to go to battle with you. We want to be standing there shoulder to shoulder with you, protecting your assets. Make no mistake, this is a war. This is good guys versus bad guys. And being able to respond, being able to understand exactly what the attack is, it's based upon data and having the data to be able to make the decisions, understand what has happened, and then proceed. So this is a world where data is king. Data is the new currency. And so as you're thinking about who these strategic partners are, one of the questions you have to be asking yourself is, who has the data and is putting that data to work on my behalf that 24/7, whether you're awake, whether you're asleep, is constantly helping you to ensure that your assets are protected. And you have to do that in the context of assuming that you've been breached. Okay? All right, so let's jump into some more demos here and actually show you some of the things that we're doing in terms of response. Okay, so the first thing here, let's show you some of the work that we've done inside of Operations Management Suite. You know, they gave a quick view of this. I'm going to dive into some specifics. Just to give you some of the context, those of you who have been with us from System Center for many, many years, and you know, System Center is one of the things I've worked on for most of my career at Microsoft. Think of OMS and its association to System Center in the same way that you think about EMS to Config Manager. Okay, so we built EMS, and EMS extends the Config Manager capabilities. OMS was built by the System Center team, and it moves into this modern cloud-first way of management and gives you the ability to manage it in a new way, but it also attaches back to your System Center. It extends your reach, it extends your investment in System Center. Now, one of the beauties of OMS is OMS can manage physical and virtual. In virtual, it can manage VMware and Microsoft. It can manage your clouds, Amazon. It can manage Azure. It can manage Windows. It can manage Linux. You have log analytics. You have backup, disaster recovery. It's a very, very full, rich capability. And this becomes your control plane for how you manage all of your apps, independent of whether it's running in your data center, whether it's running in a partner's data center. Now, I'm going to drill into a couple of specific pieces here. I want to show you some of the security and audit capabilities, so I'm going to dig in here. So again, this is information that's surfacing out of the Microsoft graph, as well as what we're collecting from an OMS perspective here. So I get a dashboard. I'm going to go into more details of this as we go. But the first thing I want to show you here is I want to dig in and look at some of the identity access. Have you ever wondered how many times you've had users, or what the success rate is of your users trying to access your infrastructure, your administrators? Look at this right here. I'm looking at data here, and it's showing me here that 67.2% of all of the authentication requests to my infrastructure from my admins has failed. And that's because of invalid usernames and passwords. Look at the data I have here now. I can take a look here. Then this is just looking at the last one day. There's been 89 attempts to log in as administrator. I'll guarantee that is somebody probing and trying to get in to your infrastructure. But you can actually see all of that here. Okay? Let's come back. Look at some of the other things that we can do from a security and audit perspective. Now, I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go look at the threat intelligence. Now, again, this is pulling data from across Microsoft, and it's pulling data from that intelligent security graph. What you're looking at here on this map, every orange box there is an inbound probe from somewhere in the world to your assets. Okay? The red is where something is being sent out from your company out to somebody else. So look at what we can learn here. I'm going to go take a look at, let's go take a look at this one right here, for example. Now, I can take a look at this, and this is going to show me that this is an inbound request from Indonesia. Okay? I can come over here and take a look at another one. This right here is an inbound request from Colombia. You know, I can download a full report here that's going to tell me more about the request. I can actually go into the request, and it'll actually give me information. It'll actually show me what the actual query is. And so now I'm actually going, I'm looking in the logs. Right here is the actual query that was made from Colombia, from someplace in Colombia, into my infrastructure. I have search capabilities here. I can actually now go search and find out every time that particular one has come in. Now, with OMS, it also allows me to set up alerts. So I can come in here now, and I can set up, I want to get an email notification, and I also want to automatically run a runbook every time I see this inbound probe. So again, we can set this up for your virtual, your physical, your clouds, across Windows, Linux, VMware, Hyper-V, Amazon, Microsoft. This becomes your control plane for your modern cloud infrastructure. Pretty powerful. I got to tell you, OMS is one of the coolest things I've had a chance to work on. Now, let me drill into something that Anne showed you a little bit today. I'm going to go much, much deeper in this scenario. Let me set this up for a minute, okay? And the way I want to set it up first is I actually want to show you a video of an attack. Okay, so what you're going to see here when this video starts, on the left-hand side, you're going to see a user. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the attacker's actual screen. So let's go ahead and run that, and I'll talk through it as we go. Okay, so you see here on the left-hand side, a user has received an email from her boss. She clicks on, opens up this document, and up on the top right, it says Enable Content. She clicks on that. That's a macro. At that point, she's owned. Just that concept. So what's happened now is it's dropped the file on the device. It's run a PowerShell script that's opened up a communication channel back to the attacker. You're looking at the attacker's PCR, or device on the right-hand side. The attacker is now downloading additional files onto that, using tools like ipconfig to see, am I on the PC or am I in a detonation chamber? It's then going and setting up some backdoors, putting things into the registry so that every time a device starts, that backdoor starts and information is sending back. That happened in less than a minute. Look, the user had no idea anything was happening. And ask yourself for a minute, how many times have you got a document, clicked on that yellow macro bar without even thinking about it? I have. Okay? I show you that because I just want you to understand how sophisticated and really how simple these attacks are. Now, think about what was involved in that attack you just saw. It came through email. Now, more often than not, we think we catch all these with Office 365. But you always assume breach. Okay, so it came in through email. It came down through Outlook on a PC, then it spread. So now what I need to understand, remember those questions. What did it do? How did it come in? How did it spread? And what's my risk? Trying to answer those questions is really, really hard because the amount of data you've got to sift through to be able to see that is immense. So what we've been working on, and one of the things that we announced today, is we've taken all of these capabilities, all of our advanced threat protection in Windows, in Office, across your network and devices, and we've now integrated that through the Intelligent Security Graph. And I'm going to give you a view here of how you'll be able to use this. And everything I'm going to show you in this is going to be released as we go through the rest of this calendar year and into Q1 of next year. So let's just kind of now go through an experience of how you would now answer those questions we talked about. So the first thing I'm looking here is I can see, and what you're looking at here is the Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection Console. I can see that there's one high priority attack. So I come in, the first thing I see is this attack is from an organization called NeuroBlaze. So I can come and click on this, and first of all, I can see information about NeuroBlaze, okay? So been active since 2007. It predominantly targets government bodies and diplomats. It's actually a pretty sophisticated attack because it uses things that's highly resilient to being identified. I can scroll down here, and I can see information like where we've seen the attack. Again, this is leveraging all the data out of the Microsoft Security Graph. Now it gets really cool. So what I can see now is the spread. So the attack was first seen on this individual's PC named Liz Bean. And what you can see here is the attacker, as a process that we just saw in that video, has now dropped 4 different files and executed onto that device. I want to learn more here. I'm going to go click on this sysdebugger, and I want to see where it spread to. Again, looking at the Intelligent Security Graph, I can see this file, sysdebugger.exe, is now on Brian's device, Lily, Yolanda, and Roger. But notice here on Lily, the file has a different name. Okay, so the attackers actually changed the name, but we know it's the same file. Now I want to learn more about the file itself, so I'm going to click on the file. And what it's going to do now is it makes a query back to the Intelligent Graph, and it says, tell me everything you know about this file called sysdebugger.exe. We come back and say, we've seen it 5 times globally. So what you're getting here now is the power of the cloud and of all this signal in the Intelligent Security Graph. And we're coming back and saying, we've seen that file 5 times in all the millions and millions of devices that are reporting back to us. Okay, that's interesting to know. But I want to see how many times I've seen it in my company. 5 times. Okay, so what do I know right now? This is a super targeted attack. It's an attack just at my company. I want to learn more. I'm going to go take a look at this deep analysis. Okay? What this is this is now giving you the analysis that we got as we took the file, put it into our detonation chamber, and let it run. Now, this concept of a detonation chamber is a core part of this is when we see these things like a malicious URL or we see a file that we think is malicious, we put it into this secure virtualized environment, we let it execute, and then we watch everything that it does, and then we learn. Okay, it's called a detonation chamber. So you can see here, okay, so first thing, it starts communicating with an IP address across an encrypted channel. You can see the things that it starts querying on the device itself, hardware information, domain name. Here's the backdoor. You can actually see that it's added something to start up every time Windows comes up, and it's using some uncommon techniques. And then you can actually see the processes that it's been running. Powerful. Okay? And this is all of this information in that security graph. Okay, now I want to learn more. Okay, so I'm continuing to learn about it. It looks like it started on Liz Bean's PC. Let's go into Liz Bean's PC and learn about it. So I'm going to click on Liz Bean. Now this is going to take me into her PC. Now I can take a look at all the things associated with the attack. I can walk down through here and I can see what has been happening. It looks like this came out of one of the Office mobile apps. And so somehow that systebugger.exe was delivered to me out of one of these apps. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now what it shows me down below here is it shows me all the processes associated with the Office apps that were running on that device. And as I come down here, I'm looking, you see right here, Outlook saved an attachment to the disk. Open that up. So I'm getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm looking at all the details of Liz Bean's PC. So I can see here about what was going on as Outlook downloaded that document. Now this data right here that you're looking at is actually data that's come from Office 365. And I can see that this particular document came in an email that was sent to Liz from Brian Eagle, who happens to be her manager. Okay, so you're seeing now where we're bringing together the Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection with Office Advanced Threat Protection. Let's go learn more. So if I click right here, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to back up my aperture and I'm going to go upstream. So I've been looking at the devices. I've seen what's been happening on Liz's device. I now want to go back and take a look at the Office 365 services and what it's learned and see what it can teach me. So I click on that, and now I'm brought into Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection in context, and I can now see what's been going on. So the first thing I see when I come down here is there have been 3 users that were targeted. And I can actually come click here, and actually will show me these 3 individuals, Yolanda, Liz, and Roger, were targeted by this attack. They were sent an email. Now, over on the right-hand side, notice 2 were blocked and 1 was delivered. So let me tell you what's happened here. So as Liz, she was the first one that downloaded this particular, enabled the macros, and that attack got started. What then happened is Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection identified the attack. It then notified Office of the attack. Office then went and saw who else was getting that, and it blocked. And that's why you see Yolanda and Roger were blocked. So now look at the power, right? We see Windows detecting something malicious on one device. It's able to communicate with the Office 365 services, and this is all being done through the security graph. Now Office is able to stop the attack on your behalf. Again, working 365 days a year, every second of every minute, protecting you. Now, if this attacker is like most attackers, they're going to be persistent. So what I want to do is I'm going to go drill into Roger's PC, and I want to see if there's been other attacks on Roger's PC. Okay, so I started with Liz's PC. I backed up into Office 365 to see what was going on at a wider aperture layer. I now want to go down, and I want to go look at Roger's PC to see if there have been other attacks leveled at it. So I click on Roger's PC, and it takes me now back into Windows Defender, and I can go take a look at what's been going on. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewind this back to the day when that attack was on 9/20. And then here's the timeline. Okay, so I'm just coming down through here. I'm looking at all the things that have happened. Look at this right here. This is saying Liz Bean authenticated to Roger's PC on this day. Why is Liz authenticating to Roger's PC? Okay, so it's suspicious. Now, what I want to see is I want to see what else Liz has been doing. This is where we now pull an EMS into the integration. So when I click on Liz Bean, it now takes me out to the advanced threat analytics capability of EMS. And what this is a behavioral tool. This particular runs in your data centers. And what it does is over a period of a couple of days, it watches what all your users do, and it builds a norm for every user in the organization. And then as your user's working, it compares that norm to it compares those actions to his or her it compares those actions to his or her norm. It also is constantly comparing the individuals to their peers. And then if we detect that something is suspicious, we'll bring it to your attention. So it's like a social media feed. So take a look at what we've seen here. So what we're seeing, first of all, is that Liz Bean's identity has been used on devices that Liz does not normally use. You can see there Roger's PC, as well as Liz has actually has authenticated on a number of servers. I can also see that Liz has been accessing resources that are abnormal for her. Okay? the power of machine learning, the power of analytics, the power of the cloud constantly feeding down different patterns and thumbprints of attacks. I can move up here now and see that sure enough, Liz has also now trying to remotely execute code on a domain controller. You're looking at attack that has been happening. And what we've done now using this intelligent security graph is we can give you that finite view at the device, back out to the services, and you can follow an attack all the way through your organization. We now know Liz's identity has been compromised. It looks like Roger's device has been compromised, and Liz is trying to spread that identity the attacker's trying to spread. So now I can go take action knowing what the attack is, knowing where it's spread to, and I can respond with confidence. The first time I saw this, it was like, holy crap. I mean, it just literally was one of those moments where you go like, I can't believe the power of what I just saw. Just to compare this to what you would do if you suspected that there was a breach or there was an attack. You would spend months trying to find the needle in the haystack, swimming in mountains of data, and trying to identify that. And you know what? We're doing that on your behalf, and we're doing it always in the background. It's the power of the cloud. It's the power of putting data to work on your behalf. There's nothing like this anywhere else in the world. Okay? It's really powerful. Okay. Now, what questions did we just help you answer? Do you know who's accessing your data, and can you react and find and then react quickly to attacks and to breaches? So what you saw new, okay, the expanded partner ecosystem, the fact that we can do this across partners, that comprehensive security with OMS across all your cloud, across all your infrastructure, and then you saw this mind-blowing integrated threat analytics for fast identification and fast reaction to stop these attacks. It's amazing, okay? Now, give you a couple of examples here of some people that are using these capabilities. Time Warner Cable, it just happens to be here, we're in Atlanta. Time Warner Cable, CNN, HBO, TBS, TNT, they constantly stream programming around the world. Now, they've been using System Center for years and years. These guys have got 30 data centers, 10,000 servers. Now, they've been using System Center for years to manage all their Windows devices, which was 50% of their servers. When they saw OMS, their Linux administrators were so impressed with what they saw, they're now using OMS to manage all their Linux servers. If I now talk about Crystal, Crystal is an organization based out of Hong Kong that produces 3 billion garments a year. This is the company that builds, that produces garments for companies like Zara, H&M, Victoria's Secret. In Hong Kong, last year, they saw a 51% increase in the cybercrime. They use the EMS Advanced Threat Analytics because it now gives them views of attacks in minutes and helps them to stay secure. Now, before we end, I do want to talk about the fact that Windows 10 is the most secure platform for business on the planet. Give you a couple of insights into what we're seeing here. So right now, what we're seeing is the interest and the movement to Windows 10 is accelerating. We get a chance to watch this through all the signal that comes in. What I see right now is we see over 1 million Windows 10 devices being deployed in the enterprise every week. Interesting data fact on this. Over 99% of those devices are being managed by Config Manager. Config Manager is how the organization is upgrading to Windows 10 and deploying. And you think about what Config Manager does for you. It gives you the ability to manage Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 traditional, Windows 10 in an MDM way if you want to do that. And then we've attached that with Intune, and you have this wonderful capability to do that. A little more insight into Config Manager. We are seeing the fastest upgrade in the history of Config Manager to the new version that we released last November. And one of the fundamental changes that we made there is we turned Config Manager into a service to match Windows as a service. And since November of 2015, we've done a new release of Config Manager every single month. And that, we've SaaSified it, we've cloudified Config Manager, which if you would have told me 5 years ago we were going to do this, I would have told you it was impossible. And the engineering team just blew my mind on it. What we're seeing now is over 40 million devices that are being managed by the new version of Config Manager. We see 1.5 million devices coming in every week. So if you're not on current branch of Config Manager, get there. That is how the world is upgrading. Now, if I take a look specifically about these same concepts of protect, detect, and respond with respect to the investments in Windows 10, there's 2 ways to look at it. The first column is if you're running Windows 10 on hardware that's a little bit older, The right-hand side is if you're running Windows 10 on new hardware that has capabilities that we've integrated with to make the platform more secure. You know, things like Windows Hello eliminates the need for passwords and actually gives you a very integrated dual authentication. I don't know if everybody knew that, but Windows Hello is actually a dual authentication because you have to have the device and your face. Okay? But it's seamless, right? Secure boot makes sure that the device booted cleanly and nothing's been injected into it. Things like Credential Guard make sure that your credentials are stored in a way that is secure and an attacker cannot spread. And then things like the new Advanced Threat Protection, the Defender Advanced Threat Protection that we just demoed, is the reason why we say Windows 10 is the most secure platform for business. Now, one organization that is fully taking advantage of this is Hendricks Motorsports. You know, this is an organization in the fast-paced world of auto racing. First of all, they use Azure for all the telemetry that comes off the car. Imagine how much telemetry comes off of that car. And if you can make it 3% more efficient, is that the difference between winning and losing? All that goes up into Azure, and all of those numbers are crunched and analyzed with the machine learning and the analytics of Azure. They've gone all the way to Office 365. They've gone all the way to Windows 10. And they're taking advantage of all of the protection and the security built across Azure, Office 365, and Windows 10. Just a wonderful example of an organization fully embracing these capabilities. Okay, so how do you get started? How do you get started on this journey? Okay, pretty simple. Make sure that you are doing the work to protect at the front door, detect the things, the behaviors, what users are doing that signal risk, and then be able to respond. The things that we are doing that we've announced this morning, where we're bringing all of our threat analytics, all of that threat protection all together in one place. And then with the machine learning of the cloud and the power of the cloud constantly working on your behalf. The fact that we've engineered this from the ground up to delight IT and to delight end users. Your organization will be far more secure as you move to these solutions, okay? And what are these solutions? Well, Windows 10, Office 365, and the Enterprise Mobility plus Security, that is what's called the Secure Productive Enterprise. This is your modern EA. Okay, organizations of any size have an enterprise agreement with us. Secure Productive Enterprise is the easiest, quickest way for you to be able to move and take advantage of everything that we just showed you in protecting your end users and the company assets. And then with Operations Management Suite, that's how you secure your infrastructure, whether it's on public cloud, private, Linux, Windows. Okay. This has been awesome. Okay. Again, we thank you for being here. You know, we know it's time away from your family, from your friends. We know when you go home here, you still have your day job, and most of us are up, till 12 and 1 o'clock doing our day job. We appreciate the opportunity to stand side by side with you and work in your organizations, and we appreciate your trust in us. Thank you.